Baseline Tech Talk Tuesday. This is the second season. I believe this is our fourth episode, fourth time with you guys. If you're joining us for the first time, as always, we have a YouTube channel, and Dan puts not only these Tech Talk Tuesdays for replay, but also new content every week on the YouTube channel. And I think last week he published a short tutorial on how to install a Wi-Fi module in a 3200. So if you'd like to check that out, as well as he's probably up to maybe 50 sort of how-to videos at this point. The YouTube channel is Baseline Web Training, all one word, on YouTube. Quick introductions. We've got Dan Conger. He's our training manager, who's going to lead us off today. Chris Wright, our VP of Sales. And I'm Andy Humphrey, Irrigation Technology Consultant. And I think, Dan, let's just have you take us from the top and jump right in.
Okay, cool. So today we're talking about runoff. From my days as a water conservation consultant, when we would see water running down the gutter in an urban setting, we're like, every drop of that water is wasted. And that's what we wanted to talk about today, and some ways that Baseline can help with preventing that and keeping that on the low. Let's just talk about defining some of the basics of it, really. So runoff is any water that's applied faster than the soil can absorb it. And that's one cause of it, right? So that could be head types and the precip rates that come with them go into that equation. The soil type. So the denser the soil, the harder the soil harder it is for it to absorb water. The percent slope, right? And soil compaction, thatch. There's many factors that go into runoff that we're creating a situation of runoff. So this I just saw down the street from me. And this is water's running down the gutter, running off the street. Every drop is wasted there.
Yep. Isn't it pretty well documented by EPA water sense labeling that 50% or more of the water applied to urban landscapes is wasted and not utilized by the plant material it's irrigating? Absolutely correct.
Right. And some of what we're seeing in this image too is there's overspray, right? So that's definitely a function of the head, but we're going to talk about the management side of it. But yes, all of those, I mean, just a one misadjusted head, one broken head can throw that in the dumpster.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And as Dan gets going, we're going to talk about runoff. But at the end of the day, we're Baseline, we're here. It's the proper application of water. So some of these tools and sort of programming tips that Dan's going to cover, you may not be able to see your runoff that we'll talk about, but it's also about applying that water properly.
Spot on. And here's a good point. Just because you don't see water running down the street doesn't mean that you're watering well. Because on this next image, the water's not running down the street. But that's all runoff, right? It's captured in there, and we were appreciating the consistency of their runoff here enough that two ducks like that, and they're just like, hey, we're gonna chill out here every day.
Natural water, wetland habitat.
Yeah, well, that might be what we don't know is this is totally intentional. It's a bird bath in the natural habitat.
I think you're giving someone way too much credit, Andy. I think they just completely have no clue what's going on there. So, another cause of runoff is applying more water than the soil can hold, right? So, watering too much, essentially watering after saturation. So, soil profile's holding all that it possibly can, and you apply more, and it's gonna either run off the top or perhaps run out the bottom. It really depends on the soil type. Now, when it drops out the bottom, you're never going to see it. Right? So very coarse soils, it's just going to drain through, and you'll never know that unless you take some other steps to manage that. So those are the two ones, right? Is faster than it can soak it up, or more than it can hold. So some of the ways around that, and probably I think one of the first ways around that I think is not enough people do, is use multiple programs. So, so many people are used to only having 4 programs, and they don't know what to do with, 99 different programs. Well, here's something you can do with it. So we separated out the different types of heads and their different application rates into different programs. And that gives us a couple of benefits, right? So we can, of course, we can always change the runtime for individual zones, but now we can change the frequency and the scheduling in which we apply the water when we use multiple programs. So that's one of the first steps. I think it's a really good tool. Now, and I think what the other thing that's kind of good to notice is, if you see program 20, that's gray. So program 20 is disabled, so it's not currently being used. So you can, use multiple programs for lots of different reasons.
Yep. Essentially, it's hydrozoning your site so that you're grouping like sprinklers or like plant material together, and then hopefully associating it with a moisture sensor that can then help to regulate the performance of the system so that you're applying the water in an intelligent fashion that is slow and deep rather than fast and creating some kind of runoff where it doesn't get into the soil profile.
Right. And kind of going back to my contractor days when I've had only four programs to work with, you're going to make those compromises. Like, well, these are the most alike, so I'm going to put those together. And these are the most alike. So you end up putting things together that don't belong together technically. And this is another great way to sort them when we have more than those four programs. But I think the bulk of it's going to come up with this intelligent cycle and soak. So intelligent cycle and soak is Baseline's approach to cycle and soak. And just real briefly, cycle and soak, just if you aren't, hopefully everyone's familiar with it, but here I've got a 45-minute runtime, which you've got that runtime / tracking ratio column, 45 minutes of total runtime that we want to apply on these rotor zones. The cycle time, the amount of time it's going to run for one period at the longest time together before it's going to pause, is 15 minutes. So it's going to do this 3 times, 15, 15, 15 adds up to our 45. But in between those 15-minute cycles, it's going to soak and give it 30 minutes to soak in. That's our soak time. So, Andy, we were talking before about the old way of doing this, the other way of doing this.
Yeah, so this will be probably our main talking point today. And as I was listening to you, Dan, it was reminding me that sort of at the heart of what Baseline does, let me restate that. This sits at the heart of what Baseline does, because when you think about, maybe even why Baseline has a soak cycle capability, it wasn't because somebody said one day, hey, I want the ability to cycle soak my own or my program. If you think back to the beginning days of Baseline of why we do what we do, it was all about the soil moisture sensor. And so in order to use soil moisture sensors, specifically in an upper threshold capacity, you must use the cycle soak capability. And the reason for that is if you put down 60 minutes of runtime or whatever the runtime is all at once, there is a period of time where it takes that water to reach the sensor in the ground. Okay. And so if you want to only put down, if the soil only needs 10 minutes, it needs time for that 10 minutes to reach the sensor. Yeah. Instead of just making a cycle soak feature, Baseline set out to sort of change the way people water plants by doing it smarter. And if you want to use a soil moisture sensor, you need this capability. Now, with that said, there are so many other sort of variables that go with cycle soak and so many other things happening on a site and on a controller, such as multiple water sources, such as multiple main lines, such as zone concurrency, that if a human, sort of just went out and set the cycle soak and push run and it just went one zone at a time, sort of around like clockwork, things wouldn't get watered. You wouldn't be maximizing your hydraulics and your zone concurrency to keep your water window short. Right. And you would have zones that are left abandoned to evapotranspiration. So when Baseline uses this phrase, intelligent soak cycle, it is essentially designed to maximize all of those hydraulic capabilities of your system so that hydraulically it runs as intended. It's also designed to minimize that evaporation. So if the first cycle is applied, it doesn't sit for another 6 hours for the other 60 zones to run, and then it comes back and that first application's gone. It's going to come back as quickly as it can after that soak period has elapsed. And if you think about all the variables that are happening inside the controller on this site to have this capability, it's like, wow, talk about an algorithm. So I think when we were planning for this talk, that was kind of my aha moment, was the cycle and soak capability is right at the heart of, base watering technology.
Yeah. Because when we're watering with soil moisture sensors, we want to, and we do this by default in the programming. Whenever you associate a sensor with a zone or with a program, it's going to force you into a cycle and soak strategy unless you tell it otherwise, right? And the intention is to apply the first cycle of water so that it breaks the surface tension of the soil. Mm-hmm. Second application will create and accelerate capillary action in that profile. And the third will help push it deeper into the root zone without it running off before you get to that second or third capability. So, and I also know that from past experience, when applying water to a slope or to a tight soil where runoff is typical, once runoff initiates, you're going to lose 80% or more of the water applied after the initiation of water or runoff during an irrigation cycle. So you got to think through it and manage the programming so that it eliminates that. You're increasing the efficiency of your irrigation cycles.
So, Andy, I kind of like that you.
And Dan,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I like that you kind of backed up to the why. I was about to go to the mechanics of how we do it, and you're like, no, hang on. The why we do this is not necessarily for timed watering, though that's convenient. That's a benefit there, but it's all about the soil moisture sensors and that upper limit, and then managing that. And I think the why is pretty important in this equation.
Oh yeah,
and when you do
thing, because it speaks to the design intent of the site and the system.
Yeah.
What are we trying to achieve?
Yep. If you're intending to run 75 gallons a minute, you need to run 75 gallons a minute. Sometimes pumps don't like to run 10, 20, 30 gallons a minute. And so we've got this soak cycle has to be, quote unquote, intelligent. And I think for a lot of you guys with us today, you can appreciate the pain points of, let's say, old-fashioned irrigation technology, where you may controllers don't have a cycle soak capability. So you do a workaround, which is to create multiple start times, every 2 hours, you water it again and again. And then you have to think, shoot, do I have a conflict between program 1 and program 2? And how long is program 1 going to run before it's done, before I can set program 2? And that's just to get the water down. That isn't even considering the hydraulics of the system at the same time. And so I think the best way to explain our soak cycle, just like you've got illustrated here, is you just enter it per zone and you're done. Like that's it.
So let's talk about what that looks like.
How does it work? I've got another question too, Dan. Which came first, the cycle or the soak?
Nice.
The cycle has to come first. You got to apply the water first before you can allow it to soak. You made me think, though. What's up with that? Come on.
That's what I do.
It's still early here in California. So.
All right. So how does intelligent cycle and soak work?
So in Andy's scenario, where you're setting up programs and multiple start times, you've got these gaps of time where you're soaking and nothing's happening. So with this intelligent cycle soak, during this 30-minute soak time, it's going to look for another zone to run. So right now, zone 1 is going to run for 15 minutes. And then it's going to pause. And it's going to wait 30 minutes before it runs. Well, I don't want that 30 minutes of dead time. I don't want my pump shutting off, and I don't want to waste that time and blow up my water window. So in that 30 minutes, it's going to look for another zone to run. So the next zone it can run is zone 3. Awesome. Zone 3 is going to run for its 15 minutes. Now, at this time, we still have another 15 minutes in our soak time. So it will run zone 4. And then when zone 4 completes, we've completed our 30-minute soak, and it's going to bounce back to zone 1 and run zone 1 again for another cycle of 15 minutes. Then it'll go back through and it'll keep bouncing around. But here's I think the beautiful thing is water is always running, right? Is the pump doesn't cycle off and on. Our water window is not destroyed. We are managing our hydraulics at that same time, and water is always running. And I think that's important because I don't want to have to choose between runoff and a big old water window.
Yeah, and we're agronomically watering the plant material correctly.
Right on. And I think there's a little bit of an illustration on this next slide from QuickView. And I think there's an enormous benefit in the color codes in QuickView. So we'll talk about it broadly, but let's talk about specific to cycle and soak. So I've got the status color chart over on the right, and you can see zones 2, 6, 8, several zones in the beginning. They're light blue. They're soaking. They've initially watered and they're in their soak time. But zone 25 is watering right now. And then 28, 31, 33, and those others are waiting to water, right? And we can tell this just at a glance. Boom, we see what's going on.
Yep.
And we know why zone 2, the first one to run in this program, is not running right now because it's light blue, it's soaking, it's allowing water to soak in.
Yeah, and let's clarify yellow, because yellow is actually interesting too. Blue means it's in the soak process. Yellow technically means it's done its soaking process and it's waiting to get watered again. So we don't know which zone is specifically next here, other than it's one of the yellow zones. No?
You're not correct. No, that's not correct. So if it's dark blue, it's watering actively. If it's light blue, it's in a cycle. If it's yellow, it's waiting its turn. So yellow, it has not started its first application of water yet, has not done its first cycle.
And you know what? And I know that because I just set up
right now, zones 2, 6, 8, 11, 18, and 22 and 25 are in that process. Zone 2 started, and it will start and finish first, right?
Darn it. So don't ever listen to anything I say, guys.
Zone 25. Well, I just wanted to make sure
if we were allowed to swear, we would tell you the baseline motto.
How does our stuff work? Right.
Yeah. I'll cue Don Pardo.
So 28 has not run yet. And what's interesting is I just set up this program and I programmed it and I just started it. And I wanted to get a good screenshot of how it was looking. And I knew I manually started it and let it run. So that's how I know what Chris just described. So I may have been a little unsure until I ran it. So the color codes, though, are really valuable in this process, right? If you walk up and you say zone 2 was the first one in the program, why is it not done? Why is zone 2 coming back on again? Well, you could look at QuickView and say, yeah, it's soaking and it's coming back around and it's got more of its cycle soaks to complete. So here's a question though, is if I'm expecting to see zone 2 run, zone 6 run, zone 8 run, and so on, am I going to see that? Am I going to see this, I don't want to say normal, traditional progression of zones running? What am I going to see, as far as zones running in this?
You get to watch the baseline dance.
Yeah,
I like that.
You get to, it doesn't run like clockwork. It runs however, best designed to meet the hydraulic needs of the site if it's set up that way. And that's not always in sequential order.
Right. Especially if we get a program that comes up to run that's a higher priority than the program that's running.
That's right.
Right. So it can change that. So that's why we like to give you at a glance status color coded so you can visually see easily what happens to be running. So if another higher priority program does come up, then all of those zones will turn pink and go into a pause.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other higher priority program will go through its operation, cycle and soak, and color code accordingly. And then when it's done, then the previous program will resume where it left off.
That's genius. I love it. I love it.
That may actually lead right into next week, Dan. You know, that color pink is a common cause of why isn't my system running. So that's the reason that Chris just mentioned is pretty common.
I like that. Awesome. That's good. So I think you talked about the why. Let's talk about soil moisture sensors. We can double back to any of this if we need to. So soil moisture sensors play into this, right? And they play into runoff. Now, soil moisture sensors themselves can't prevent. Well,
right.
I almost.
So remember, just think of the soil moisture sensor. It's a data collector, or it's not a collector. It's a sensing device. It just senses. It doesn't control run times and start times and days of the week and all that, unless you set up a program, right? Accordingly, just as you mentioned, to cycle and soak, you are able to see the results of your watering with the sensor, right? It's going to display how well you watered or how well you cycle and soaked your system.
Mm-hmm. So a lower limit, right, is going to wait till the soil moisture profile dries out and then fill it up as much as you've told it. But an upper limit, and I think this is one where this really comes into play, an upper limit will fill up the soil profile to the top to field capacity as much as it will hold, and then prevent watering after that one if you've programmed it correctly. So if I've got a runtime, let's say it fills up its soil profile, but it still has more runtime to complete. Well, I don't want it to top off. So how do I stop that from happening? How do I stop it from excess watering?
Yeah, in upper threshold mode, it operates on cycles, right? So if it needs more, it'll do another cycle, but not another full runtime. So your cycle is essentially your resolution. How tightly do you want to control that application of water? The shorter the cycle time, the more opportunity you have to have a tighter application of water, so that if you overwatered, let's say, it's only going to be for, a lesser amount of time. Right. So a great analogy would be if you had sprinklers that were if you had very tight soil, super hard packed clay, and you wanted to pump water into it, you could head up a 1-minute cycle and a 5-minute soak for 60 minutes. And it'll just do this and very slowly over time, pulse that zone into the clay.
Mm-hmm.
Versus
maybe an effective way to water a green roof or a green wall, right?
Yeah. So I want to flip that the other way, Andy. So what would happen if I did a 30-minute cycle, 30-minute cycle, and then it fills up at 10 minutes? It's going to complete all of that 30 minutes, and now I've got 20 minutes of runoff and 20 minutes of wasted water.
Right.
So
when
I like the resolution.
And that's kind of the beauty of the sensor and looking at the graphs over time is if you have an upper threshold limit, but you see that you keep watering above the threshold, it's likely because you haven't set up your soak cycles correctly to stop watering here. It's applying a whole nother cycle and it's too much. It's too much time. You have to tighten up that cycle time and add more soak time.
Mm-hmm. So I think that comes back to that why, right? This is, I think, the crux of cycle soak revolves around these soil moisture sensors and how it was engineered and why it was engineered and why we brought in cycle soak with this one so you're not wasting that water.
Yeah, because you can, certainly switch out your spray nozzles to a high efficiency, MP rotator, et cetera. Or you can, properly use cycle and soak. However, not every company does it like baseline. So for majority of the industry, you can't water correctly to make up for those, inefficient spray nozzles. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Typical controllers aren't capable of doing it. And if they are, not very easily.
The other thing, so does I'm just thinking about lower limit, how that comes into play. For the most part, it's upper limit, the cycle soak. So Chris mentioned earlier that we're forced into a cycle and soak, or that's the default on when we go to upper limit, right? So if to prevent that excess water and to have that good resolution.
Yeah, but you could use a lower threshold to cycle and soak as well. So if you're using a sensor with lower threshold, you would just increase the number of start times that you may have as an option for that program. So say you got a start time for 7 a.m., 1 p.m., and 8 p.m. If it's dried out at 7 or 8 a.m., the first cycle, it'll allow it to water, and then it'll check it again at the 1 p.m. And if it hasn't dried down below that threshold, then it'll skip that start time, wait for the next one, which is 8 p.m. And then if it's dried down below that, then it'll allow that 8 p.m. cycle to start. So there's different ways that you can utilize cycle soak using the technology. You've got the flexibility there. You just have to be creative in how you apply it. And sometimes that requires thinking outside the start time.
It all comes back to thinking outside the start time, doesn't it?
It really does. Yeah.
Why do you not have a shirt? Why do you not have a business called Thinking Outside the Start Time? Do you own that URL?
Yeah. Well, I'd start with just a t-shirt. Think outside the start time. So the question came in.
So we do have a question.
An anonymous attendee. How do you determine your soak time?
Well, there is a couple ways of doing it.
Isn't there a really long calculation algorithm that the IA has where you can scientifically get it to the second?
Good.
Yeah, a person could do that.
Yeah. It technically depends on your soil type, your slope, all those things that would impact how long it takes for that water to get into the soil profile. So that brings up one of the capabilities of Base Manager when we're using weather access. Because when we're using weather access, we have to go into each zone and give it properties. So we give it the sprinkler type, the
percent slope,
soil type, the slope, all of those things. And then it will calculate for us a predictive cycle soak that will tell us how long can this, based on those parameters, how long can this sprinkler type run before we will start seeing runoff. And then it'll give us a recommended soak based on that soil type, root depth, slope, all that stuff as well. So that can be an added way to determine what your required cycle and soak may be. And in Base Manager, you have the ability to automatically apply that as well.
And then my keep it simple, stupid version of it is observation. I think if you run your zone and you just sit there with your cup of coffee and you watch it, just use your eyes. And when you start seeing water run off, back it up.
Cycle. Yeah.
Right. That's my cycle time. You know how you can do the calculation, or from observation how much runtime you need, but how much can you apply in one time? And each zone may be different. So
yeah, but that's cycle. That's not soak, right?
Oh, you're right. Pardon me.
You can visually see your cycle when your runoff occurs, but how long do you know before you
point taken? Yeah.
Set your soak time. So, and you can see that with moisture graphs as well, right? You can see how long it takes for the water to infiltrate that profile to where the sensor sees it by increasing the resolution of the graphing capability on the moisture sensor to dial it in and see how long it takes for that sensor to see an application of water.
Awesome.
Right. So I've seen it take as long as hours for water to get into a clay soil that's to a sensor that's 3 or 4 inches below the grade level.
Yeah. Believable.
Yeah. So, all right. We got another long question. Let me read it and I'll paraphrase it, continue on, and we can address it.
Okay. Well, I think this is going to be our last question because looks like we're at our time limit today. The while you're reading that, we're going to back up. I'm going to tell you what we got coming next week. Next week, are you ready to?
Yeah, it's a question regarding moisture sensor in a drip program. Would you need to have a start time if you were just wanting to run the program when it needed water by the sensor versus setting up multiple start times?
Great question.
That is a good question. And no, you don't have to have a start time. We can start an irrigation cycle based on a moisture threshold.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
So,
truly on-demand watering.
Yep, that's what I do on my property. I don't have any start times. I just water on demand when my landscape needs it.
Yep.
So
and
that's
then just have a closed.
And when you think
water
about
window
drip,
when it's
that's really
not allowed to water.
Yep. The beauty of it is because it can run anytime. It's subsurface or on surface. It doesn't have any effect on people walking and less effect on drift and all of that. So it's a great way to water.
Yeah.
beautiful. Time is just another one of
Nice.
those.
Hey, Tim.
Conditions. Oh, there we go. Oh, sweet.
Thanks for clarifying.
All right. So our 30 minutes is up, gentlemen.
Okay.
So you announced what we're doing next week?
No,
Dan?
next week we're going to have Brandon on from support, and we're going to talk about the question that comes up: why didn't my zone run, or did it? Why didn't my program run, or did it? So why did things not run as expected? And top 5 reasons why a zone didn't run as expected. So
Awesome.
should be enlightening.
All right. Very good.
Yep.
Well, everybody, we
Great.
appreciate your participation. Thanks for coming out to another episode of Tech Talk Tuesday. Go out and have a good week and be safe, work hard, and we'll come back around next Tuesday, same place, same time.
See y'all then.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.